Welcome back to the Archive Network. Aurelius here with Malik, curators of the Lineage archive. We left Fatimid Dynasty last time, and the end has come. Today we pick up where we left off. Famine stalks the Nile. The echoes of clashing armies fill the streets of Cairo. This isn't just a crisis. It's a reckoning. The Fatimid Dynasty, once a beacon of power, now faces a twilight of despair. The golden court's splendor fades, replaced by fear and desperation. This is the grim reality of a great empire unraveling.
But let's not forget the human cost. It wasn't just the palace's splendor that faded. It was the very lives of ordinary people. The streets of Cairo weren't simply echoing with armies. They were filled with the cries of the starving. This isn't merely political failure, Aurelius. It's a societal collapse that devastated countless families.
True enough, Malik. The Fatimid Caliphate, once so vibrant, was unraveling before our eyes. By the late 11th century, successions turned bloody. Viziers, those ambitious players, were constantly scheming. Each one wanted to be the power behind the throne, but ambition can be treacherous. They often found themselves betrayed, and their daggers weren't just for show. The caliph's divine authority? It dwindled to a mere shadow of its former self, a grim reminder of empires on the brink.
That shadow cloaked the heart of governance. The caliphate's authority wasn't just eroding. It was crumbling from the inside like a once mighty fortress. The viziers might have been ambitious in their schemes, but they were also desperate, caught in a web of conflicting loyalties. They weren't simply vying for power. They were trying to navigate a storm of chaos and intrigue that threatened to engulf not just them, but everyone who depended on their decisions.
You're not wrong about the chaos. The reign of Al-Mustansir Billah encapsulated this crisis perfectly. His rule, the longest in Fatimid history, became a glaring showcase of decline. When famine struck, the Nile's failure was a harsh metaphor for the dynasty itself. Granaries emptied, markets fell silent, and disease spread like wildfire, compounding the misery. People lost hope as their once thriving society crumbled under the weight of neglect and mismanagement. It's a stark reminder of how quickly fortunes can change.
Famine didn't just mean there was less food. It stripped away the very dignity of the people. In Cairo, families were pushed to desperate measures, begging on the streets, fighting over scraps just to survive. This wasn't just a failure of governance. It was a humanitarian disaster unfolding before our eyes. The once bright Fatimid dream faded into a harsh reality, leaving deep scars on the community, scars that would take generations to heal.
Indeed, the treasures of the palace were sold off to pay mercenaries. Loyalty had vanished. The soldiers, once a source of strength, became another layer of chaos. Divided by ethnicity, they turned the city into a battleground, often spilling their conflicts into the palace itself. Contemporary chronicles describe a city in turmoil, a stark contrast to its former glory.
Aurelius, you paint a picture of grand failure, but we must acknowledge the human stories behind the chaos. The soldiers weren't faceless combatants. They were individuals caught in a power struggle. The palace wasn't just a place of politics. It was home to families torn apart by conflict. The heart of Cairo was beating, even as it faced its darkest days.
True, Malik. The collapse reached far beyond the capital. The provinces sensed the dynasty's weakness like vultures circling a wounded beast. Governors began acting like kings, collecting taxes for themselves and ignoring central authority. Meanwhile, with the Mediterranean filled with new threats, the Fatimid grip faltered. The rise of the Normans in Sicily and the Seljuk Turks in the east was just the beginning. We could see the cracks widening, and soon it would all come crashing down.
And yet, Aurelius, the Fatimid collapse wasn't just about external pressures. We can't overlook the internal strife that tore them apart. After Al-Mustansir's death, the split in the Ismaili community fractured their very foundation. The Nizari and Mustali branches didn't just argue over doctrine. They fought fiercely for control. This schism spilled into the streets, leading to violence and division that drove families apart. Everyday people felt the impact, caught in a struggle they never wanted.
You're correct. The schism marked a crucial, decisive moment. The rituals of court and mosque, once proud, became battlegrounds of suspicion and fear. The caliphs, stripped of their power, became mere puppets in a dangerous game. Suddenly, Badr al-Jamali, a former slave soldier, rose to prominence. He didn't just rebuild the state. He did so with ruthless efficiency, wielding power like a weapon. Wisdom was a luxury he couldn't afford, and in the end, strength reigned supreme.
And in that ruthlessness, Badr forgot the soul of governance. A state built on fear is a fragile thing. The people sensed the decay, even if the palace walls stood tall. Cairo, once a hub of culture and learning, became a shadow of its former self, illustrating the price of neglect and oppression. This was the true tragedy of the Fatimid Dynasty.
The final blow fell in 1171. Saladin, once a loyal servant, seized power, deposing the last Fatimid caliph, Al-Adid. This was not merely conquest. It was the culmination of decades of decay. The Fatimid dream of universal rule ended, leaving only memories and ruins. The shift from Fatimid to Sunni rule marked a profound transformation.
That's where we leave it this time. Fatimid Dynasty continues. The story isn't finished yet. Find the full series on the Lineage Archive, part of the Archive Network. We'll be back with the next chapter.